All right, so we've got this little dilemma in terms of the rest of the gameplay. So we're asking the user for a letter, we're validating it, and then we're checking to see if the letter's in the word. But what happens if it's not in the word, or what happens if it is in the word? How do we know when this game is finished, right? And of course, we still have to print out the word to the user as they make guesses. And so let's try and figure all this out. Where do we start? Well, again, in our Hangman tools, we built our get random word, which we've used. We've validated the guess, but we haven't updated the word. When do we want to print out what the word is after they've guessed? And the answer is probably regardless whether they got it right or got it wrong. It'd be nice to show them the word. And so maybe I just write in here console.writeLine, and I print out what the word is. So maybe I just say something like word, and then in order to get the word and print it out to them, I need to go call that method. And so the method is update the word, and I need to pass in the letters guessed and the solution. And so I can come in here and say my HT class, Hangman tools, and I can say, I've already forgotten the name of it. What is it? Update word. And then in parentheses, I need to pass in the letters guessed and the solution. Now, the fact that those have the same name is totally incidental, right? I've named it letters guessed here, but that exists between the scope of this class, right? Only inside this class. As I've made this declaration here, it only applies to this class. Over here, the fact that this is named letters guessed, I could just as easily name it something different, or maybe I should, so I'm going to call this something else. And if you change something in Visual Studio, just as a little hint, you can highlight it, right-click on it, and rename it, and it will rename it anywhere it occurs in the file. And so I can call this LG instead, right? And I can call this one, if I rename, I gotta actually hit the enter key, and I can call this one S. But see, it didn't change it because I didn't use the rename. So let's try highlighting it, right-click, rename, and call it S, enter. It will change it anywhere it's used in that class. Now over here, as I try to call this method, it'll say, give me a string LG and a string S. Well, that doesn't really help me, but the program would work exactly the same. And so these names do not need to match as I pass these in. I'm going to put it back the way it was because I like it better. Okay, so then it's more descriptive on this side, right? It's telling us what to pass it, but if they don't line up, the names don't line up, that's A-okay. So we're going to print out what the word was, regardless of what happens, so that's fine. So we're using that third method. But how do we keep track of, let's start with how do they lose? Well, if we start them out with a number of guesses and we decided that there's a head, a body, 2 arms, 2 legs, that's 6 guesses. And so I could give them in the beginning, let's say, I could create here an integer called incorrect guesses. Okay, and when that number gets to, and I'll start out at 0. When that number gets to 6, then we know the game's over, right? So then in here, I can, if the guess was incorrect, then I'm going to tell them, sorry, the word does not have that letter, but I can also take whatever the incorrect guesses was and increment that by 1 so that we know how many they have. And we probably ought to let them know how many guesses they have left after we do that. So I could say console.writeLine and say, so I'll do the string interpolation again. I could say, you have how many numbers. So I'm going to put in here and take the number of guesses, or incorrect guesses, but they started with 6. So I'm going to say 6 minus the incorrect guesses, and then I can say guesses left. Does that make sense? So if they started out with 6, I'm going to take whatever 6 started out with, or the number 6 is the number of guesses, and I'm going to subtract how many incorrect guesses they have, and that'll tell them how many guesses they have left. All right, so I've updated that, and then how do I know if the game is over yet? So if I've incremented that, do I want to tell them they have a number of guesses less if they don't have any? No. And so probably what I want to do here is actually say if the incorrect guesses at that point, after we've incremented it, is less than 6, then we want to tell them how many guesses they have left. But what if it's greater than or equal to 6, which is the opposite of that? So else meaning it's over 6, I could say something like console.writeLine, sorry you lost. Okay, if we got to that point. And maybe to make it more clear, again, you might just say if incorrect guesses is greater than or equal to 6, then we say sorry you lost. And again, those kind of work the same, but sometimes when you do an else, you get some wacky thing that you weren't even thinking about in terms of a situation, and it acts like you lost, but really the wacky thing had happened. And so a lot of times I'll even for myself, I'll write it out this way so that if something goes wrong, then it won't do either of those things, and I'll say, oh wait, what happened? Then I can go look at it instead of it just defaulting to one of the two. So either way, console.writeLine, I know there's varying opinions on that. Console.writeLine, sorry you lost. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to tell them the game's over. So I'm going to set game, not tell them, I'm going to tell the program the game is over. So I'm going to say game over equals true. And now when we reach this bottom statement, then it will know that game over is true now, and it will exit this game. So while it's not game over means while game over is false, as soon as game over is true, we'll exit. All right, conversely, how do I know on the win? How do I know when they've won? Well, in Hangman, isn't it when I've matched all the letters, I've got the full word that matches the solution, isn't that when we win? And so on the correct guess, so we can say yes, the letters in the word, and then we can check to see if the not their guess, but the result of their guess. So the updated word, the word that we're doing here, the HT update word. So if I grab this same thing and say, let's go update the word after they've made a correct guess. So if the guess is in the word, in the solution, then let's go look at the updated word and say, is that updated word equal to the solution? And if the updated word is equal to the solution, then I can print out and tell them you won. And then I can do the same thing. I can set game over equal to true, and that will tell us that we can exit. And then if we exit, I can print out a message and say something like, thanks for playing, please come again. All right, so now we've got these different situations handled. We've got a win. How do we know if they've won? Well, if the updated word matches the solution, they've won. How do we know if they've lost? If they've gone over 6 guesses, then they've lost. And so all that is faulting now is that something that I probably should have been doing all along the way, which is running this program and testing it a piece at a time. We're going to test it in the next video and then just kind of do a summary of what we've done. And we'll do that next. Spencer, out.